Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Thursday, and so fortunate to be joined by a great friend of the show, Joe Hillman. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How you been?
Cannot complain, man. How is the finance world?
Well, it's a little volatile right now. Who knows what's going on with interest rates and tariffs and inflation? Who knows? No,
Yeah,
everything's
funny.
good.
All that stuff is happening right now. And now, I know a while back you had to change the company name, so I want to make sure we have that right.
Well, it's now Strive Financial Group. We made a branding change. So same guys, just wanted to go a different brand, and we moved offices, and so it's all good. Yeah, things are going great.
And if someone wanted to reach out to you for financial help, where would they find you?
Well, they could find us at www.strivefg.com. So STRIVEFG.com.
Well, and you know that somebody like Joe Helman strives to be the best. That's where you should reach out, my friend. Obviously, things have not gone well for the Hoosiers here this season and over the last couple of seasons, and there's looks to be a coaching change coming. They do have play not only their best game of the season the other night, right after this announcement came, but probably their best game in a couple of years, to be honest with you, Joe.
Well, it might be their best win.
Yes.
Probably their best win. I don't know how great they played, because I actually thought they played better up at Purdue, except for the last 4 or 5 minutes. But they kept it simple on Tuesday night against Michigan State, and they got away from the high pick and roll, and they just said, we're throwing the ball inside and we're driving the ball to the basket. And even though this is going to be considered a great win, I have to say this might be the best job that Tom Izzo has done with a team ever, because this team can't shoot. They have 0 shooters, and yet the ability for them to get to the foul line, they play fundamentally sound defense, they block out, they rebound, and that's why they're where they're at, and where IU is where they're at, because we don't do those things, even though we don't make shots either.
Yeah, that was a fortunate thing that it did not come down to 3-point shooting, because neither team could throw it in the ocean from a boat the other night. But fortunately, Michigan State couldn't stop Indiana's inside game. And it was the first time that Mike Woodson did not start Ballo and Renew without Renew being injured. So that was a good thing to see, because and how about that zone defense? What the hell? We don't see that from Indiana very often.
Yeah, that changed the game, really. Indiana couldn't stop any drives early on. They were kind of getting to the rim. Big men were having to come over and help, and they were getting some offensive rebounds. They went to the zone and completely changed the whole the momentum of the game, and Michigan State couldn't make any shots. Indiana went to a zone the game prior to a little bit, and did that against Michigan in the second half, and that seemed to help. They just do a terrible job of guarding anybody off the dribble, and it's hurt them all year. So I'm really interested to see if they stick with this zone against teams that have some shooting, and then I would be shocked if you see 2 big men in the lineup at the same time for here on out.
One would think and one would hope, but that has not always been the case. But it amazed me, though. They were playing a zone, but they were playing better. They seemed to be playing better matchup defense in the zone than they did when playing man-to-man defense. So it's just kind of crazy how things go with that team, and maybe that's what they needed to get that spark. We'll find out. I think Joe Hillman, we lost Joe for a second. He'll jump back on here, but yeah, when I was watching that game, the amazing thing, one of the amazing things was watching them play defense. And I couldn't believe how tightly they were, and everyone was adjusting, because when you see them playing man-to-man, they were playing a lot looser. They gave up a lot more 3-point. Well, they still gave up 3-point attempts, but they weren't going down for Michigan State. And I don't know if that was the reason or not. We'll see if we can get Joe back on, and hopefully he'll rejoin us here in a second. Enjoy talking to him and looking forward to hearing his thoughts on what has gone on this season. And then we're going to talk about, you know what, those potential. Joe, you still there by chance? All right, he'll have to rejoin us. We'll get him to nope. We'll get him to rejoin here in a second, which I'm sure he will. But yeah, watching that defense was spectacular. Now, can Indiana continue that? Will they continue using the zone like Joe just suggested? I think that they should. Now, of course, that matters is dependent upon the matchup of who you're playing, the personnel that team brings, and what they do. Will it work? Well, Indiana just looked like they played better overall defense, period, with the zone. It's kind of odd because Indiana has been known as a man-to-man team forever. And and for a team that doesn't play that, to be able not only to implement it and play it so well, that was pretty interesting to see also. Hey, welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. Joe Hillman with me. And Joe, sorry about that, man. That's just, you know how it goes. We're talking about Indiana basketball. You know, weirdly enough, they still have an outside shot to make the NCAA tournament, as crazy as it sounds. And it is kind of crazy. But you look back now, if they could have just gotten that Maryland and or Purdue game, they would have an even a more realistic shot.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, those you look at those two games where they just didn't close out at the end. We were talking about that in the office today. You win both those games, you are in. But they played 3 games in a row at home. And I guess they may have an opportunity if they win all 3 of those games, because then they're going to go out west, play Washington, who's not very good. So, I mean, Indiana could win 5 or 6 games the rest of the way. I mean, they got the ability. It's just their track record hasn't proven that they can finish games out, which is what I thought up at Tuesday was probably the best thing for this team going forward. Is they finally got a close game and got a win by making some free throws, and that'll be good for them going forward for sure.
Looking forward to it. Now, also, there is the elephant in the room. Indiana will be looking for a new coach at the end of the season. Boy, the names were flying, of course, as we expected they would be. I think that some of these are legitimate. Some are just not legitimate for various reasons, not because of being liked or not liked. There's financial reasons, this buyout, that buyout. But there are 2 names. Well, actually, there are 3 names, but I don't think that Brad Stevens should be in the conversation because I don't think that he's realistic. I think that he's more than happy making $11.3 million in the NBA right now. No matter if the Celtics are under new ownership, they're not going to dump Brad Stevens. He might be the greatest mind in the game.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a name that it's going to get thrown out, but I don't think that's realistic. One, the guy's been coaching college basketball in 7-8 years. The entire landscape has changed. He never had to deal with this NIL thing, the transfer portal. So I'm not sure that's realistic at all. I mean, obviously he's a great basketball mind, and if you could get him, you could get him. But why do you leave the Celtics when you're running the Celtics to come and coach at Indiana? That's been kind of in a mess the last 12, 15 years.
Yeah, and he would have to be his own GM in essence with the transfer portal. And in the NBA, you know what you have. You have guys under contract, whether it's 3 years, 4 years, doesn't matter. They can't just transfer out after a season of not liking it. So that's something he wouldn't have to deal with. Dusty May, obviously, to me, is a name that has to be sitting at the top. Not because I think that it should be, but just because if you add all the things in, Dusty and his relationship to IU, but he's been a successful coach. He went to the Final Four at FAU. We know what he's doing at Michigan in his first season. There's no way that's not Indiana's first call.
Well, I'm sure he's going to get a call, but I don't know why. I mean, I don't know. Is he the first call? I don't know.
I don't. I mean, I don't. I would just think that he would be. Who would you think that would be?
Oh, I think there's numerous guys. I think, I'll tell you a guy I'd make my first call to is Tony Bennett and see if he really is done coaching. Um, but, Chris Beard will be on that list, I'm sure. Dusty May. I mean, there's a laundry list of 20 guys. And like you said, the, the name and the record and all that is a part of the factor in bringing in a guy. You have no idea what their buyouts are. You have no idea what their out clauses are in any of these contracts. And does a guy want to come to Indiana? I mean, those are things that you got to do. Me personally, you get a couple of guys, you make a phone call. If they don't want to do it, then let's go find a young guy that's going to hold guys accountable, that's going to be tough on kids, that's going to make guys be fundamentally sound and get back to running a program. This deal where you're going to go buy players every single year, go to the transfer portal, and you're not going to recruit any players to come in, that's not a program. That is a country club NBA style deal that isn't going to work. It just doesn't. It's been proven you can't get it done. You got to build a program. Look at what Purdue and Matt Painter's done. He's got a culture up there that works. Indiana has no culture anymore. It's all, let's just go get the best thing money can buy. And you're not winning with those guys, or you haven't proven that you can. So why not just go back to getting so-called 3-stars and 4-star guys instead of going out and buying players?
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier for some guys, but I would.
You don't have to
think that
recruit. You don't have to
Right.
recruit if you're just if Indiana's got a bucket full of money and they're in the top 5 in NIL money, you don't have to go recruit. But if you want to build a program and get back to where you're winning year in and year out and have continuity and build a culture that everybody's proud of, the transfer portal's add one guy maybe a year to help your team because you got a kid that left and went to the NBA early. Oh, we've got to fill that spot. Let's go to the transfer portal and do it. The best Indiana played the other night against Michigan, the best they played was when they had all 4 guys that had been around the program for 3 or 4 years, and they put in Tucker. None of the transfer guys were playing against Michigan when Indiana made their run the second half. There's something to be said about that.
And Luke Goody has been a great addition.
Yeah, Luke Goody wasn't on the floor in the Michigan game either. And Luke Goody needs to keep his mouth shut and quit telling the fans what he knows and doesn't know. He's blasting ex-players that have been around the program for 25 years, and those guys have done more than Luke Goody ever thought about doing at Indiana. Just keep your mouth shut, Luke, and go make shots and do what you're supposed to do. These guys all need to stay off of Twitter. They all need to stay off of Instagram. They all need to stay out of the bars. But part of that's the culture that's been built at Indiana. These guys hang out at the bars all the time. I know for a fact because my daughter was a waitress down at Kilroy's and saw them all the time.
And that is something that I'm not going to say never happened in the past, but it was
never
definitely
happened
not.
when I was there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
guys
it
went to
was
bars
not.
in the off season. They never went during the season.
Oh, absolutely. And the fact that there's been other things like the issue at the casino early on down in the Bahamas,
if that actually happened, that there should have been a real big uproar on that. The stuff that you're hearing is why there needs to be a change. If 1/10 of what you hear, and again, those are all rumors, but if 1/10 of what you're hearing is true, the change has to be made, and it's going to be made.
Yeah, there's no question about that because you mentioned not having culture, not having discipline. That stuff comes through when you see the guys chirping with each other a lot on the floor. Coaches chirping with each other is surprising, and then not having people not knowing what they were doing. The end of the Maryland game was probably the quintessential representation of what's going on, where nobody knew who's in, who's not in, who needs to be in, what are we doing? All of that came to a head, and it's like, how are you not prepared ahead of time?
That was a total disaster. One thing that Coach Knight always taught us, and this was ingrained in our mind, if there is less than 3 seconds and the other team makes a shot, you call a timeout. Otherwise, get it and go and don't let the D set up. So then my question would be, what happened up at Purdue? If Purdue was a situation where I was trying to get Miles Rice's attention to do what? To call timeout?
Yeah.
Well, you're allowed as a coach to call timeout. Why didn't you just call a timeout? When I was done, Jim, when I was done with this was the Illinois game. We give up 60 points in the first half of Illinois. At home, get totally blasted. And who starts the second half? The same starters that got us down. That was when I was done. That second half should have been the starters of every single walk-on that team, and every guy that played in the first half of Illinois should have sat and watched. That was disgraceful. That they ripped out the same starting lineup that just gave up 60 points. It's embarrassing. I'm too worried that these guys are going to leave. Why do you care if a guy's going to leave if you're 5-8 in the Big Ten? Who cares if they leave?
Yeah, I don't see anybody being left on this team after the season, to be honest with you.
Who's going to pay them as much as they're making now?
Nobody. And I don't know that I don't think that there's anybody that you would want back from that who has been through that culture, who has been allowed to do the things that they've been able to do.
Look, Tucker's a very good player. I think Tucker could do a lot of good things. He's got a great mid-range game. He can get his own shot. Does Goody have – if Goody's got a year of eligibility left, yes. Miles Rice, yes. Bring these guys back. Renew, if he's got another year, bring him back. But they got to be coached, and they got to be, in the stuff that some of this stuff, Jim, is from when you're losing. There's no doubt about it. You get frustrated. Guys start barking at each other. It is frustrating. It's hard. So that's why I want to see a win like Tuesday could change this whole season around. And you can only get after him so many times. At some point, Coach Woody is probably on these guys and demanding stuff. But at some point, they just tune it out. And you got to have some success. And once you get a little success, it starts breeding success. And maybe that's what's going to happen here. I literally, if Indiana will play like they played the other night, get the ball inside without this high pick and roll stuff, because you're running a high pick and roll with a guy who can't shoot. I mean, it blows my mind that coaches in the Big Ten do not go under the ball of screen when Galloway's dribbling. Why would you ever give Galloway an opportunity to get around the corner and throw a lob and shoot the runner, which he's good at? He can't shoot 3-point shots. So go under the screen and beg him to shoot it. The lack of coaching on some of this stuff just blows my mind in the Big Ten. But, you set up and you just say, okay, we're going inside and we're pounding it inside, and this is how we're going to play the rest of the way. Indiana's going to get people in foul trouble, and they have the ability to score inside. So, who knows? They could win 3 in a row at home real easy.
Yeah, and that would be good for this team, this program. But there's no doubt we've talked about the change that is coming, which this will be the third coach Indiana's hired in 8 years now, after Archie Miller, then Mike Woodson. This hire has to be right. They had so many opportunities, and the NIL and the transfer portal have actually, to me, given Indiana a golden ticket to kind of bounce back to being Indiana, but just haven't taken advantage of it.
For sure. You can definitely build and get back much quicker now at the portal and the NIL. Now, Scott Dolson, the university, the board of trustees needs to get out of the way. They made the Mike Woodson hire. Scott Dolson did not make the Mike Woodson hire. They just, and let's not kid ourselves. That was a Quinn Buckner hire and a Steve Ferguson hire. No doubt about it. And they need to get out of the way and let Scott do his job. Scott found Kurt Signetti. I think everybody says, look, great hire. Give Scott the ability to go do what he was hired to do. He knows what the Indiana basketball culture has been. He was a manager there for 4 years. He's been around the program forever. Scott knows. So let him do his job. And we don't need this nepotism and I'm getting my best friend in here and whatnot. Look, when Woody was hired, I was all for it because it was an Indiana Bob Knight guy. But it didn't work, and everybody just needs to say it didn't work. And now let's go get the best guy for the job, whether it's an Indiana guy or not. But, it's time to move on and get somebody in there that's going to recruit, get somebody that's going to hold guys accountable. There's no accountability. Because if Umar Bala was out at the bars, again, you can do who knows what can happen with pictures and everything. But if he was out at the bars the Friday night before a Saturday noon game, he should have not been playing for more than one game. I mean, when's it stop?
Oh, exactly, because that promotes that behavior when you don't do something about it. And I love having people like you and Todd Leary on. You guys are so knowledgeable about the game, and naturally, from what you've done, it really befuddles my mind when we see something like how Mike has handled these 4 years, because everybody I talk to just is like, oh, I don't get why they're not doing these simple things that a lot of times fans are asking the same questions. So it's kind of is it because you just spent so long away from the college game, away from what his roots were?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's an NBA guy, which is great. I mean, you don't hang around and coach in the NBA for as long as he did. But I mean, when this hire got made, Mike Woodson's name never crossed my mind. I didn't even think he wanted to coach in college. But it wasn't like anybody in the NBA was dying to hire him. This kind of got pushed down Indiana's throat by the board of trustees and a couple of guys that were on there, and it didn't work. Okay, it's okay to say it didn't work, and that's all right. But it's time to move on, and you got to get somebody in here who's going to be tough and hold kids accountable. And with this NIL money and the transfer portal, you can get things going pretty quickly. The question becomes, are you held hostage because we are now paying guys? I mean, I want to know what happens if you say, hey, guess what? So-and-so, we're paying you X amount of dollars. You're not getting it done. I don't care if you leave, see you later, and you're not getting your money.
Yeah, there should be clauses that you have to do. And I think this goes for coaches. They have all of these incentives for winning, but there's no disincentivization for losing.
Yeah, and that's what I don't get about this NIL deal. So you can just show up to practice and say, I don't feel like practicing today. Well, if that happens, that guy shouldn't play. And then
of course not.
I don't want to hear any coach ever say, well, I'm being told that I got to play this kid because we're paying him so much money. No, you don't. If the kid leaves, he leaves. Who cares? You're not winning with him. So why do you care if he stays?
Here's a great question, Joe. Chris Beard, obviously a great coach, he's done great things. He took Texas Tech to the national championship game. He lost his job at Texas for reasons that we have heard and don't know all of but
was Chris Beard ever charged? Was Chris Beard ever charged with anything?
There were no charges. Whatever charges there were dropped.
Okay. So what are we talking about? I mean, Indiana was okay with bringing in Kelvin Sampson. Chris Beard was never charged with anything. Now, did he do so? Who knows? I guess we'll never know. But yes. You know what? Every guy's got skeletons in the closet.
The fact that he would crawl to Bloomington, Joe. He is a guy you were talking about earlier. He wants to be in Bloomington. He wants to be at Indiana without question.
I mean, the guy can coach. And again, you want to dig up skeletons and everybody, that's fine. I can tell you this. If you win, you think anybody's going to care what happened 10 years ago, 12 years ago? No, they're not. Because if you win, it's going to be okay. But again, he wasn't charged with anything. So I don't know. He'd be a guy on my list. I can tell you that. He'd be on my top 3 or 4 guys to call for sure.
And he fits in a lot of different ways. Not only does he win, he's been successful at multiple schools. What he's doing at Ole Miss is pretty amazing, to be honest, Joe. He inherited a 13-22 team. His first season, they started 15-0 last season. This year, he had them ranked in the top 25, still ranked in the top 25. They're number 19. They go on the road, get a win last night. They're 19-6 in the toughest conference in America. And so
he's done a great job, but then go look at what Dusty May's done in flipping that Michigan thing.
No, exactly. So Indiana, before their options weren't that great. Right now, it seems like they have at least two great options that they can choose from, not choose from, that either Dusty turns it down, or if they offer Chris Beard first, well, he'll take the damn job. There's no question. He would crawl over broken glass for this job. People that think that people don't want to come to Indiana, you're out of your mind. It's I tell people this is a sleeping giant, that it is just waiting to explode again, and it will.
That's why I say give Tony Bennett a call. Tony Bennett walked away at Virginia because I don't think they could compete on the NIL level. And Indiana will be able to compete on that. So that's why it's going to be an attractive job, because this thing's going to go to this profit sharing deal. This thing's going to go into all of this stuff where NIL is still going to be a part of it. But if you don't have the funds and the money to do that, can you compete at the highest level? You better have a really good coach who's able to get more out of his players than he can. I think you're seeing that with Chris Bird down in Mississippi. I don't know what Michigan's. I would think that Michigan's got a good pool of NIL money, but Dusty May brought in some guys, and obviously he's created a different culture up there that's working. And again, there's numerous guys you can call, or you could just say, you know what, we are completely starting over. I'm going to go get a 35, 36-year-old guy who's tough on kids, who's going to coach kids. We're going to go recruit kids in Indiana and the Midwest, and we're going to add a couple pieces here. And it's going to take us 2 or 3 more years to get the thing going. Now, I don't know if Indiana has the patience to do that.
Well, it shouldn't, though. That's the thing, because you see guys like Dusty, like Pat Kelsey at Louisville, like Mark Pope at Kentucky, and there are others. Look what Rick Pitino is doing at St. John's. I mean, it's nuts. The right coach, the right guy, they don't need. Kirk Cignetti. Are you kidding me? Indiana football was not even a program. It was a corpse. And look what he did with that, and will do with that again this year. So you get the right guy, and Kirk Cignetti was the right guy. You need someone like that. Is there anybody that's out there that you're like, no, I just don't think that's a good fit for Indiana or whatever?
Bro, I would say no.
Is that because of his age?
Yeah, his age, and I mean, I don't think that, and I know Bruce Pearl really, really well. He was Tom Davis's head assistant when he recruited me in high school, when they were at Stanford. And that name's gonna get thrown out. I just don't think Brad Stevens to me is I just don't see it. So Scott will have people I'm sure he's going to talk to and run things by, but hopefully this is going to be his decision this time and not the Board of Trustees' decision.
Well, I can say that I think that a preponderance of the average fans, their pick is actually Chris Beard. From all of the things I've seen, we've got a poll on the Hoosier.com that Chris Beard is like 47%, and it is far and away he is the selection. But I think part of that is because he reminds the older fan base of Bob Knight in a way, because he's kind of the closest to that in the way they play defense and his aggressive style. But also he always pays homage to Bob Knight, including when he just recently beat Kentucky's butt at halftime. He brought up, that's just Bob Knight and blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't think that was accidental, but
no, that wasn't accidental. I'm sure.
But he wants this job. I mean, and so that in and of itself. But I mean, he's a quality candidate that wants the job. It's hard to turn that down, in my opinion, especially with his track record.
Again, it'll be an interesting, and you know what? Maybe Scott's already got his guy. I don't know. I have no idea. For some reason they decided to do this thing now with Woody.
Well, I think that was because of Dusty May and Michigan coming in. It was already going to be awkward, but unfortunately it didn't get less awkward with how they did it, with how Woody handled it, I think, because it wasn't really, they put out the statement that Woody had decided, well, yeah, right. Okay. Whatever you want to say. I don't think anybody.
This was a forced retirement.
And so if you're going to do that at the end of the year. I don't know that doing that in the middle. Maybe it did. Maybe they should have made this announcement a few games back, Joe.
Well, Jim, maybe this freed these kids up to go play, and maybe that all this talk and all this stuff is going to help them play better going forward. It might. I mean, they've actually played pretty good the last, 60 minutes. The second half of the Michigan game, they played pretty well, and they played some good basketball up at Michigan State. So, maybe that's a big help.
Yeah, it would be amazing to see Todd Leary, Brian Evans, and Joe Hillman on the sidelines for Indiana. How would that go between you three minds? Different, kind of not completely different eras, but kind of successive eras.
Yeah, I don't know if that would work.
I could see three heads butting together pretty consistently.
I would take it and take the money these guys make these days. That's for sure.
Well, you ain't lying there. Well, nothing else. That team would be tougher than nails.
Well, we would block out, we'd defend, and we'd have some shooters.
This team. That's toughness is just not something this team seems to have much of the time. Every now and then they'll show it, but they just don't seem to have this innate toughness.
Yeah, and I think that's ingrained in the culture of the program. I just do, and that's just not what it's about anymore. We're not hard.
And
we are not hard to play against. Just guys dribble right to the lane. Well, when you give up 60 at home, that tells you we're not very tough to play against. I mean, that's just inexcusable and a mental. Coach Knight used to say mental is to physical as 4 is to 1, meaning if you are mentally tougher than the other team, you are going to beat teams that are more athletic than you, have better ability, more talent. You're still going to beat them. We now have a lot of talent, and we don't have that toughness anymore that just says, you know what, I'm going to grit my teeth. You're not driving by me, and you're not getting a rebound because I'm going to block you out. And there's a real deal as far as, to me, on a mental toughness side is just because you're open doesn't mean you shoot the ball with 20 seconds on the shot clock. If you can't shoot, don't shoot it. Drive to the hoop. You can, what people don't understand is you can be a big asset to a team without scoring. You don't have to score to help the team.
You are a perfect example of that. You scored 44 points a game in high school, but you come to Indiana and you filled a role that Bob Knight wanted you to play, which was a defense facilitator or whatever it took.
You had to do that to play. And I'll just give you an example. Galloway, I usually don't like bashing players in college, but these guys are getting paid now. Galloway should never
are they?
3-point shot unless there's 2 seconds on the shot clock. He's not a 3-point shooter. He's not. So quit shooting threes. Get the ball to the basket. He could average 10 real easy by getting a steal and a dunk, which he did the other night, driving down the lane, getting a bucket, making a little floater. All of a sudden now you get a rebound put back, and you got 8 or 10 points. He doesn't need to shoot threes because he can't make them. I'll bet if you go back and look at Galloway's stats for the year on the 3-point line, I'll guarantee you 7 or 8 or 9 of his makes this year, maybe even more, are with less than 2 minutes to go and we're down 20. Who cares? He shouldn't even be in the game at that point. I'll tell you another embarrassing thing, Jim, that I saw that I just couldn't believe was the night that we played up in Wisconsin. Wisconsin brings in their third-string guys, walk-on guys, and we decided to put in our first starters, and then all of a sudden we decide to press down 20. I mean, what is that? Why are we not clearing the bench? Mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is crazy. Strive Financial Group, Strive FG, www.strivefg.com is where you can find Mr. Joe Helman. And if you need some financial assistance, advice, he can take care of that, especially companies or individuals either, right?
Yep. We do a lot of retirement income strategies and a lot of tax strategies. So that's what we specialize in, and that's where we can help people out.
You need to get in contact with these basketball players, bro, or actually all the athletes. The money they are making these days, it's mind-boggling.
Yep. And hopefully they're doing something with these these payments and going to be able to pay their taxes, because I do worry about that a little bit, that they get this money and they don't realize they're going to have to give 30% to the government, and all of a sudden they're going to have a big bill. But
should they set that up and do that ahead of time? I think so.
They should make it like all these 1099, or I'm sure they're 1099 payments, but any of these NIL payments, they should treat them like a W-2 and take so much out, put it aside so that they can pay in April.
I think that schools should have people like yourself that are in this business. Man, they should have group sessions and meetings and bring people like you in to talk to these athletes. I know they probably do, but it's you guys that they should be bringing in.
Yeah, they probably do. But also you got to remember, the school's really not supposed to be involved in NIL payments.
Well, that changes. That changes.
It does change. So it'll be interesting. And I might throw some out at Scott Dolson and say, hey, look, you need to bring us in.
Yeah, I agree.
Guys, but that's all right.
Absolutely. Joe Hillman, I cannot thank you enough, brother. You are always great, and owe you one at Nick's the next time you're in town for a game.
All right, Jim. Good talking to you.
Is your daughter still in school?
Nope. She graduated.
She's gone. All right. Well, mine's a senior, but she's down at Ole Miss. So appreciate you, my friend. Enjoy your day. I thank you so much.
Yep. See you. Bye.
You bet. Joe Hillman joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Cannot thank him enough. He's just one of the greats. He is somebody who came from California, but has become more of a Hoosier than, and by Hoosier, I mean a person from the state of Indiana, all that stuff, than anybody. He never left. He is all about it. He knows the history. He is just a quintessential Indiana type guy. And Indiana is lucky and fortunate to have someone like him in their camp. Man, I can't thank everybody enough today. It was a blast. Looking forward to tomorrow. We got another former player on. Of course, that's Todd Leary, as he joins us each and every Friday, but in the same mold as first time we'll get to talk to him since this announcement has come. But Zach Osterman as well. Enjoy your day. Go out and have a great one. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate all the birthday wishes yesterday. I tried to ignore it as much as I could, but thankful. No, nonetheless, appreciate you for being with us today. We're back tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.